The first sound is not thunder, nor bell, nor blade. It is the silence of a mirror cracking, a brittle shiver echoing through the marrow of Camelot's deepest library. Dust leaps from forgotten shelves, dancing in the faint glow of a single lantern, as though the stones themselves recoil from memory. The fractured glass trembles in its frame, and behind it yawns a vault sealed by the dread of kings long dead. Chains, blackened with age, bind its arch, each link carved with runes that pulse faintly like veins of fire buried under skin. Merlin stands before it, the starfire lantern trembling in his grasp, its glow restless, spilling shadows that writhe like serpents across tomes bloated with damp. His breath is ragged, for though the chamber is still, the air tastes of iron and smouldering parchment, as if some invisible fire licks the edges of the world. Gaius lingers at his side, voice hushed yet sharp with fear. "These are the chambers of the forgotten spells," he warns, "sealed not for their power alone, but for the devastation they demand in return." The crystal hums faintly from within Merlin's satchel, as though recognizing kinship in the forbidden. Its light leaks through worn leather, pulsing like a caged heart, and with every beat, Merlin feels the weight of prophecy coil tighter around his soul. He reaches for the vault, though his master's hand lingers on his sleeve. Gaius shakes his head, eyes old and weary. Once loosed, boy. No spell remembered will ever be forgotten again. Above them, far beyond stone and silence, Camelot stirs. In the high chambers, Arthur bends over counsel, his armor shimmering with torchlight, his words full of defiance though he knows not the shadow that shifts beneath his feet. Gwen kneels at the altar, her tears falling into wax, each drop a prayer burning against despair. And at the threshold of the citadel, Morgana lingers, frost dripping from her shadow-weave cloak, her lips parted as though listening to whispers no one else can hear. Her breath curls silver into the night, and her eyes hunger for crowns that gleam in ruin. The mirror cracks once more, this time a jagged fissure crawling like lightning through its surface. The runes on the chains ignite, twisting into serpentine scales of light that coil into the stone walls, making them writhe as though alive. The vault groans like a beast awakening from centuries of slumber, and the lantern in Merlin's hand flares white, its starfire straining against the dark. He presses his palm to the chains, and the sigil burned into his flesh sears as though branded anew. The lock shatters. A hiss escapes, not of air, nor wind, nor man, but of voices, hundreds, thousands, tongues forbidden, syllables writhing like smoke. They spill through the crack, serpents of sound slithering into the chamber, coiling around books, around breath, around bone. Gaius stumbles back, face ashen. Merlin stands frozen, his lantern trembling, his eyes reflecting the abyss now staring back at him. The hiss resolves into words, soft as breath upon the neck. No spell, once remembered, is ever forgotten. The lantern flares once, then dies. Darkness rushes in, thick and smothering, swallowing torch, stone, and soul alike. And in that darkness a truth coils, that Camelot's roots are no longer silent, and no hand that touched the vault shall leave unchanged. Rain lashes against Camelot's battlements, each drop striking like a curse whispered from the storm. The sky hangs low, swollen with bruised dark clouds, and the stone walls weep with torrents that race like veins toward the valley. Inside the war hall, torches gutter and hiss in the damp, their flames clawing against the weight of the tempest. The chamber is heavy with the smell of wet iron and wax burned to smoke. Arthur leans over the great map table, its oak surface scarred by generations of battle, and upon it rests his moon-steel blade. The weapon hums faintly, as though alive, a song of restrained defiance trembling in the ears of all who dare listen. His gauntlet presses to the wood, knuckles white, breath taut with impatience. Gwen steps closer, her gown brushing the stones, her hands trembling against the iron rail. Her voice is warm but laced with dread, carrying both devotion and despair. "Arthur, the people grow weary. They whisper of storms unending, of omens that gnaw at their dreams. Mercy, I beg of you, if not for yourself, then for them. Gaius shifts in the shadows, his voice gravelled with age. The signs are clear. Wells brimming with black water, children dreaming of fire, mirrors that consume reflections whole. The ground remembers what was buried. The vault stirs beneath us. But Arthur's eyes burn, hard as forged steel. Then let it stir. Destiny will bend to my crown, as it has always done. No darkness shall crawl from the earth that I will not cut down. His fist slams upon the table, and the sound rings like a death knell through the hall. Merlin lingers apart, pale and hollow-eyed. The crystal pulses from his satchel, its thrum like a heartbeat in his chest. Every blink brings with it visions, scales vast as battlements, venom spilling like rivers, Morgana's eyes lit with hunger sharp as flame. His palm sears with pain, the sigil burning brighter with each boast Arthur casts against prophecy. He lowers his gaze, for to meet Arthur's eyes would be to confess the terror he cannot yet speak. From the hall's threshold, unseen by all, Morgana lingers. Her shadow stretches long across the stone, her breath frosting the air. She listens, lips curved in cruel amusement, her laughter soft, a fracture in fragile glass. "You would fight prophecy with steel," she whispers to herself, the words a serpent's coil upon her tongue. The air thickens. Thunder claws through the heavens, splitting the sky with white fire. The torches waver, their flames bending as if bowing to some unseen power. Outside, the moon rises blood-red, casting its pall across the spires where ravens circle, their wings beating frantic in the storm's breath. Arthur straightens, defiant still, but the ground shudders beneath their feet. The map trembles, goblets quiver, and the war table itself rattles under the strain. Gaius grips the edge, his face hollow. Gwen gasps, clutching at Arthur's arm. And Merlin feels it most of all. The pulse, the breath, the awakening. From deep below Camelot's crypts, the vault exhales. Forgotten magic seeps upward, coiling through roots and stone alike. The hiss of the ancient stirs, a serpent's breath threading into the marrow of the world. And though no battle cry has yet been raised, the war has already begun. The forest groans beneath a mantle of mist, branches warped as though twisted by the weight of centuries. Lanterns of starfire sway from skeletal trees, their glow weak against a darkness that seems to breathe. Each flame bends low, as if bowing to an unseen presence stalking between root and shadow. The air tastes of ash and damp moss, and every breath feels borrowed from a world reluctant to share. Merlin treads the hidden path, his boots sinking into soil blackened by curses long buried. The crystal thrums in his satchel, alive with a rhythm too steady, too ancient, like the heartbeat of something vast and coiled deep within the earth. Every step brings visions, flashes of serpentine scales slicing through the dark, rivers of fire carving scars into the land, the glint of Morgana's eyes watching, waiting. From the shadows, beasts prowl. Their eyes burn like molten gold, their claws rake the earth in sparks, their forms half seen, half whispered into being by the same call that binds Merlin forward. Yet none strike, for something older still holds their leash. Then the druids emerge, as though conjured by the mist itself. Cloaked in ash and constellations, their faces veiled in paint, they seem less like men and more like fragments of prophecy given flesh. They kneel, not to Merlin, but to the sigil seared upon his palm, its glow bleeding faintly through the mist. Their voices tremble, like reeds bowed by storm wind. Keeper of the forgotten spells, cursed bearer of what kings sought to silence. They rise, circling him, their chants thickening the air until even the beasts retreat into shadow. One steps forward, eyes hollow as moons eclipsed. Morgana woos the storm. Already the darkness bends to her hand. Arthur's throne falters, trembling beneath coils unseen. And you are bound to the awakening. The vault will answer your blood. Merlin's voice cracks, hollow, as he whispers, "Then what choice is left me?" Into his hand they press a shard of obsidian, its surface etched with symbols that bleed silver when touched, its edge sharp as betrayal. The crystal in his satchel hums louder, answering the shard's cry as though two relics recognize each other. Every word uttered here will bleed into the tomb. The Druids warn, their voices one. Every path demands a toll. What is remembered cannot be buried again. A crow feather drifts down, black as pitch, landing upon his branded hand. The omen seals itself with silence heavier than any curse. And then the vision comes. Merlin staggers as fire erupts across his sight. Arthur's moon-steel blade, splintered into dust. Morgana unscathed, her shadow rising over a sea of flame. Camelot drowned, its towers bound in serpents woven of spell and stone. Merlin gasps awake, the shard searing his palm with pain so deep it reaches bone. The Druids are gone. The mist collapses into silence. Even the beasts have vanished, leaving only the hiss of prophecy's breath, slithering through the trees. Alone in the forest, he clutches the shard, trembling. He knows the truth now. No crown can endure the tide that rises. The dungeons weep with water, each drop striking stone like the measured ticking of a cursed clock. The air is heavy with mildew and rust, chains clinking faintly as though stirred by unseen hands. Shadows move in the corners, long and restless, and within them Morgana descends, her torch held aloft. Its flame bends toward her, enslaved by the power that coils in her breath. Frost unravels from her shadow-weave cloak, serpents of ice slithering along the walls, leaving behind a skin of rime that glitters faintly in the dying light. She comes at last to the hidden chamber, a place even kings feared to name. An arch rises before her, its surface alive with serpentine carvings, writhing like trapped things desperate for release. Blood runes stain the stone, pulsing faintly as if they still remember the screams of the ones who bound them there. Morgana lays her hand upon them, whispering incantations forbidden even in the darkest circles of sorcery. Her voice is low, venomous, tasting of salt and ruin. The runes stir, glowing with hunger. Far above, Merlin stumbles in the citadel, clutching the crystal as though it might steady him. His body convulses, for the relic responds to Morgana's call. It thrums like a beast caged too long, straining against him, yearning to answer. Sweat beads his brow, his breath breaks in ragged bursts, his eyes flashing with a shimmer of visions. And into this depth comes Gwen. Her steps are hesitant, her lantern trembling in her grip, its flame no match for the endless dark. Guided by devotion stronger than fear, she dares the labyrinth, its walls slick with rot, its silence broken only by the echo of dripping water. She passes rusted crowns piled in forgotten corners, relics of kings whose reigns were swallowed by shadow. Her breath quickens when she finds Morgana before the runes, her silhouette vast, dreadful, as if she had become the shadow itself. "You cannot claim it," Gwen whispers, though her voice falters, quivering in the cold. Morgana turns, her eyes glinting with cruel amusement, her smile sharper than frost. "Arthur's love blinds you, sweet Gwen. Thrones are nothing but scales waiting to be shed. You will learn that love cannot shield you from truth." Gwen raises her lantern high, defiance trembling in her arms. Its fragile flame catches upon the runes, igniting them with sudden brilliance. The chamber convulses. The walls pulse like a living heart. From the stone bursts a vision, vast and suffocating. Camelot drowned in ash, Arthur's crown unraveling into smoke, the serpent's coils tightening around the spires until stone itself splinters. Morgana laughs, a laugh that shatters the air, cruel and triumphant. With a single breath she extinguishes her torch, plunging the chamber into suffocating darkness. The sound of dripping water returns, slow and rhythmic, echoing like the serpent's own breath. Gwen trembles, clutching her dimming lantern, its glow feeble against the living shadow that presses closer, as though hungry for her final light. Above, Merlin collapses to his knees, the crystal searing his flesh, his cry lost to the storm outside. The tomb stirs. The chains of silence crack. And far beneath Camelot, something older than crowns listens. Dawn bleeds across Camelot's ramparts, a fragile wash of crimson swallowed by storm clouds massing at the horizon. The wind lashes the battlements, carrying with it the iron taste of rain yet to fall. Arthur dons his armor in the great chamber, each clasp snapping into place like the toll of a war drum, each buckle echoing with the weight of kings long buried. His breath rises sharp in the chill, a steady rhythm against the silence of waiting. Gaius hovers nearby, his hands folded behind his back, his face creased with worry. "My king," he murmurs, "the crystal was bound with curses for good reason. The deeper you tread, the more it will demand." But Arthur steels himself, his jaw set, the scent of oiled steel and leather pressing heavy in the room. "If destiny seeks to bend me, let it try. Camelot will not bow." In the great hall banners strain against unseen winds, their fabric twisting like souls desperate for release. The torches flicker as if smothered by invisible hands. Merlin lingers in shadow, his hollow gaze fixed upon Arthur, his silence heavier than any counsel. For the sigil upon his palm sears whenever Arthur draws near, a wound crying against the king's chosen path. Visions linger in his mind, coils rising from earth, thrones crumbling, friends consumed by ruin, and yet no word escapes his lips. Gwen moves to Arthur's side, her fingers trembling as she clasps his hand. Her voice, woven with devotion yet frayed by despair, whispers, "The storm asks too much." Arthur bends close, his eyes softer for only a heartbeat. "Then I will give more." His words linger like iron in the air, unyielding, unbreakable. Outside, horns blare across the valley, a sound that pierces the marrow. Ravens wheel above the spires, their caws sharp as knives against the thunderclouds. Upon a high tower Morgana watches, her cloak unfurling like black wings, her lips curved in cruel anticipation. Frost drips from her fingers, falling into the storm as if to lace it with her will. Below, knights gather in the courtyard, their shields polished to mirrors. Torchlight splinters across their surfaces, catching faces lined with both courage and dread. The air thrums with prayers unspoken, hearts thudding against fate's command. Merlin grips the crystal in the shadows, its hum clawing at his soul. Threads of time unravel before him, paths upon paths, each ending in ruin. He sees Arthur's blade shatter, Gwen's light extinguished, Camelot smothered beneath serpentine coils. The weight of prophecy presses until his chest aches, yet he follows still, for silence may damn them more surely than any spell. The gates groan as they open, their cry like ancient beasts in pain. The storm swallows all, banners, torches, breath. Thunder hammers the sky, lightning claws across towers. The knights march into its teeth, their reflections fractured in the polished steel they bear. And far beneath the earth, deeper than the crypts, deeper than the dungeons, the forgotten spells stir. Their hiss coils through the roots of Camelot, winding into the marrow of the world. The serpent shifts, ancient and vast, no longer dreaming. The battlefield smoulders beneath a storm-rent sky, the soil blackened, spears shattered like broken ribs of fallen giants. Rain hisses upon charred earth, each drop mingling with blood until the ground itself seems to weep. Smoke curls through the gale, stinging the air with ash and sorrow. Arthur stands amid the ruin, his moon-steel blade lifted though his arm trembles beneath its weight. His armor, battered and streaked with mud, glints faintly as if reluctant to reflect a world collapsing. Before him, Morgana waits, her eyes gleaming obsidian fire, her lips curving with venom. Her voice drips like a curse, invoking the vengeance of queens betrayed. Each syllable strikes like a chain, heavy with centuries of hate. Camelot was built on lies, she hisses, and now it shall drown in its own crown. Arthur steadies his blade, its edge humming with defiance, yet his resolve falters when Gwen's cry pierces the storm. She kneels among the fallen, her hands bloodied, her sobs breaking against the thunder. Arthur's gaze wavers, torn between crown and heart. On the edge of the battlefield, Merlin clutches the crystal of forgotten spells, its pulse thrumming like 1,000 heartbeats at once. Its light unravels before him, cruel and merciless, showing past, present, and futures that writhe in endless ruin. He tastes iron on his tongue, the rain biting like blood. Thunder cracks above, sharp as breaking bone. The sigil upon his palm sears deeper, its burn sinking into marrow. Visions overwhelm him, Morgana enthroned upon ashes, Arthur swallowed whole by shadow, Camelot reduced to whispers carried on the wind. The relic calls for its toll, to shatter destiny, to fracture time itself, or to preserve the weave and forsake the ones he loves. Arthur shouts his name across the chaos. Gwen's plea trembles through the storm. Morgana's laughter rises like a dirge, swelling higher than the thunder. The tempest itself holds its breath, as though creation waits for his choice. Merlin lifts the crystal high. Its light refracts through the storm, splintering across pools of rain until the battlefield glitters with mirrors of futures already undone. He sees them all, Arthur victorious, Arthur fallen, Morgana reigning, Camelot in ruin, Camelot reborn, 1,000 shards of fate fractured beyond mending. He closes his eyes. The world falls into silence, the storm pausing in reverent terror. And in that silence, the fracture comes. A tear slices across time itself, invisible yet all-consuming. The sky splits, ravens bursting from Camelot's towers in a frenzy, their wings black against the hollow heavens. The battlefield bends, its cries swallowed into the wound in creation. When the silence breaks, nothing is as it was. The crystal dims in Merlin's hand, its fire burned out. The storm scatters, leaving only rain that falls without rhythm. And high above, the ravens circle endlessly, bearing witness to destiny's breaking point, a wound that will never fully close.